We'll open with the political winner of 2024. Rahul Gandhi is actually feels more serious than he ever has,
For a lot of people through this year, AI was basically the next best thing after sliced bread.
The exit polls so unscientific and so way off that I don't know why big channels pay massive amounts of money.
The big surprise was the Ambani wedding.
But no, wait, why were you surprised?
Because it didn't end. It just kept coming. It's like Hi, and welcome back to the India Dialogue, our end of year special. As we wrap up 2024 and enter 2025, we wanted to do something different. Unlike our previous episodes where we tend to cover specific topics, we wanted to basically have an award show, so to speak, or have some predictions as we enter 2025. So all of us, we've been thinking about or reflecting on what happened in India this year or what happened in our world this year. We've come up with a few categories that we'll try and cover in terms of who did well, who didn't, provide our answers where we can. And obviously, if there's some discussions amongst ourselves, we'll go through that. To start our categories, we'll start with politics because that's where we spend a lot of our time and we all have very strong opinions. So we'll open with the political winner of 2024. Who wants to take this? Mitali, do you want to take on the political winner of 2024?
I can give it a crack and then I will pass it on to you both. I think I will sort of preface this by saying that I think all three of us have tried to think about largely a lot of India-based examples. So there could be many more because the world is large, but a lot of our list could look like it has a lot of India faces. My political winner of the year, I think, is Hemant Soren. When you think about it, he's not a very old politician. He's quite young. I think not much older than any of us. Someone who's kind of been part of Jharkhand, been part of the community there, so very much a son of the soil. And I think someone who really faced a lot of heat over the last year and a half, as anyone listening may know, he was arrested by the Enforcement Directorate. He then went on to stand for elections and actually came out victorious in the face of what is now consistently across India, I think, extremely intense pre-election fights. There's a lot of money and muscle that comes in from the ruling party at the center. So for state parties, I think they really have to. They're punching above their weight in most of these contests. But for me, Hemant Soren really came out as a political winner because of, I think, also the grace with which he handled all of this, and the fact that he managed to keep his electoral base very, very strong and very committed to himself and his party. Manu, you wanna go next?
I know I won't actually tackle the political loser of 2024, so I will let Ruchir go on.
The political winner. I think it was the Indian External Affairs unit as a whole. I think it's what most governments dream of, which is to actually have cordial relations with almost every government. They've managed to maintain friendships with Russia, United States, Iran, Israel, all of the Gulf states at the same time. Obviously, we had issues with China, which they basically seem to have brought an end to the diplomatic Cold War towards the end of the year. Remember, in the episodes we covered Maldives and Sri Lanka, and right now we're ending all of those, and we're ending the year as optimistic on all those fronts. So I feel like the Indian External Affairs team led by Jai Shankar did an incredible job. I think it's no mean feat that they maintained to keep threading the needle as carefully as they have.
I want to challenge you on this one though, because I think mostly through the year. Sorry, did I just steal your line, Mitali?
No, I was
on
just
this.
say, it was set up perfectly.
But yeah, I think Ruchir, you have to take credit for I think triggering this response from me. But see, the fact that uh, apparently, going by your perspective, if the Indochina diplomatic crisis has been resolved, then the first question is, why did it take so long to get resolved, right? I mean, and this is not start at the beginning of 2024. This goes back to when the apps were suddenly banned, and there was all this sort of, which was in retaliation to the incursions made by the Chinese at that point of time. And the border question is still not sorted out. I know that there has been progress made, but the other problem I have is that it's done all, shrouded in secrecy. So we really do not know what was actually discussed, or what is the outcome. But I understand that there are larger issues, and these may not be always best sort of done in bright public view. But don't forget, this is also the year where the Indo Canadian relationships have hit rock bottom, and then, like I said, of course there's the Indo-US, which is sort of linked to the Panun case and whatnot, and then you had issues across sort of the other major Western democracies, including the UK, where there were sort of various Khalistani movements, which sort of, I think tested Indian patriotic spirit as well. But I take your point that Indian external affairs ministries worked over time, but I'm not quite sure if all the problems in our immediate neighborhood. But if I can go ahead to political loser, unless anybody wants to add on to that.
I actually one very quick addendum, which is that it's really interesting how, and maybe this will become our space to watch, which is the Indian External Affairs Ministry. There is an article, I think, published yesterday or today by the Washington Post, which is basically an investigation how, after the Maldives a year ago had elected President Musu, they now have proof of how India's RAW, the intelligence agency, was kind of working quietly with the opposition in Maldives to plan an ousting of President Muizu. Sorry, I think it's really interesting from the point that Manu made about relations in Canada, the Panu episode in America. Maybe it's a function of playing more aggressively, as Ruchir is saying, and being the more aggressive player, and then there is pushback against it. But honestly, I think the Indian External Affairs Ministry it's going to get interesting, let's say, in the months to come, particularly with the kind of changes there are across the world, on whether this remains the best set match to be playing.
Lovely. So I think on that note, let's move to the next exciting category, which is the opposite, which is the political loser of 2024. Now, here I go back to my very sort of tried and tested adage, which is that oppositions never win, governments lose. So the losers really, according to me, for 2024 are Mr. Rishi Sunak and also Mr. Joe Biden, because I think, I understand there was quite different circumstances, and of course Sunak was facing many terms in government for his party, and therefore greater anti-incumbency. Joe Biden, other issues, as we sort of have unpacked over the course of many episodes this year. But I think really those two people, for various reasons, having lost government and in quite spectacular fashion, I think they are the big political losers, according to me. Ruchir, you had some views on political loser from the domestic
For
front.
me, it's like, yeah, exactly. Arvind Kejriwal basically had a bad year. Did not retain his 7 seats in Delhi. Punjab, they won 3. There was so much hype in Gujarat and Haryana, like every time there is. I mean, I think they paid for so much advertising that the media gives him a lot of credit. But obviously now with the arrest in the Delhi liquor policy case, which like everyone believes is likely true, there's been a strong loss of credibility for the brand Kejriwal. So I think Arvind Kejriwal like probably had a year he can forget.
But
That was
just
my
a quick correction. You use the word retain in I think in Delhi, BJP won all 7 last time too, if I
correct.
recall correctly. So Aam Aadmi
Oh,
Party.
sorry, I meant to say that Yeah, their state success did not translate to the federal success. That's what I meant. Union success. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Fair enough. Mithali, do you want to chip in on political
Just very
leaders?
quickly, actually, and not, not with too much detail. It's not an individual, and it's not even a party, which is strange. It's a subsection of a party, which is, I think, a lot of the senior leadership in Congress. Um, I think there's a disappointing gap there that needs to be filled for a party that has the potential to be a really sort of thriving opposition. I think Haryana was an example of that. When you are ridden by this much infighting at a very senior level of your party, and when a lot of your party members are so consumed by self interest, I think it can be to the detriment of an organization, and it can be to the detriment of really digging down and cleaning out rot when it needs to be. So I think my disappointment is not, it's not a Rahul Gandhi or a, Priyanka Gandhi or anything like that, but it is a senior slab in the Congress where I do feel there's a big gap, which is preventing it from being its full self.
It's interesting, we obviously have different political views, and that's clear. For me, I actually think this is the year, and we'll come back to this, that Rahul Gandhi is actually feels more serious than he ever has, Anyway, we'll come back to that.
No, he is.
Um,
It's not about him.
yeah,
This is about kind of a, level two, like what's happening at your level two.
right.
Fair enough.
And then political surprise of 2024.
Yeah.
I'll go first. For me, it was Akhilesh Yadav and the Samajwadi Party. I mean, I think everyone assumed that BJP will do, and obviously exit polls didn't help, but everyone assumed that BJP will do well in UP. The fact that Samajwadi Party made the dent that they did with the 37 seats, I think it surprised everyone. So that was the surprise of the year from my perspective.
Well, I mean, hard to look past Donald J. Trump. I mean, look, it's one thing for an old, I mean, like a person in opposition, but here was a man, I think, who was sort of facing a bunch of cases. There were actually very serious and genuine reasons why the American voters, threw him out in 2020. And for him to come back, I mean, how do you explain this? I mean, that was surprising for me. So for me, Mr. Trump is the political surprise of 2024. Mithali,
Fair.
you want to?
No, not really. Nothing quite compelling enough. I had a couple of ideas, but I don't think anything that really translates into a political surprise. So, shall we switch categories and move to business?
Was watching the political space, Mithali, nothing surprises you anymore, I
Ah,
think. Yes. Let's move on to businesses. So, business winner of 2024. Mithali, do you want to go first and then Ruchir?
I can. For me, again, it's not one company, but I think it's all things AI. I think it really kind of exploded front and center. Uh, for so long now, there's been this big fight when you talk about tech, which is Google and Meta, companies like that. But honestly speaking, there's a whole new tech industry at play, far more powerful. These are not startups. We would be kidding ourselves if we called them that. And they wield honestly quite a bit by way of both political influence. Their tech muscle is very strong. So I think all these companies that have been in different ways approaching AI, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Perplexity AI, for me, they're the big business winners for this year. Ruchir.
I mean, on that note, I was going with an Indian angle, but like Nvidia is the picks and shovel supplier of our time. In gold mining, people made less money in gold, more in the picks and shovels, and Levi's made in selling denim. Similarly, I think what we are seeing right now is Nvidia, they're doing so well. But closer to home, I was going to say Zepto has been a big winner this year. They've raised over $1 billion. They are a 4-year-old company run by early, 20-year-olds. So it's quite impressive what they've been able to pull off. It's not easy to pull off something at scale. I think the thing about quick commerce is it's something that everyone writes off right away. It's not first, it's not that important. There's not enough room for any players to survive. Everyone will lose money on every transaction. But like I had this conversation last week with a friend who is in a cloud kitchen business, and he was like, Ruchir, I didn't think that quick food delivery would be something that people care about, but they like these guys are doing 60 or 70,000 orders a month in just quick food delivery. And so they are being forced, the cloud kitchen folks are being forced to innovate in this space. So I think Zepto is really changing commerce and how it operates. So that's been the big winner this year in 2024.
Just a quick question to both of you. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, do you think businesses have really innovated in 2024? I mean, AI is an example, but other things. I mean, sometimes when I listen to a new business that's making waves, it just sounds like the old idea in sort of some new packaging. Is that, am I wrong?
Richard, you go first.
I think more often it's not, but I mean, I think there are things that stay and things that don't. And in my mind, like AI is something that everyone's feeling is making an impact meaningfully, right? Like my search is now no longer Google; it's Perplexity, like all the time. And I think my day-to-day use of AI is probably like 20% of my day, right? So that is meaningful in terms of the productivity improve it's showing. So the innovation there is definitely going to make a huge difference in the way we do day to day. It's not going to transition overnight, but it will start showing up in the small pockets across the board. So for me, AI is like a meaningful change. It's not true for all innovation, but it's definitely true for AI.
I'm actually a bit of a fence sitter on it, Manu. The honest answer is that I know that they've had, when I say business success, I mean like just in terms of the size and the valuation and the reach and the fact that everybody now knows what they mean. Whether or not impact and influence is equal to, size of companies, I'm still not sure. I think for a lot of people through this year, AI was basically the next best thing after sliced bread. Whether or not it's going to be, I think it remains a question mark. There's so much talk about, is this going to revolutionize the way we live? Again, I don't know if we know the answer to that, but maybe you're right in the sense that there was a little bit of a dry patch in terms of innovation. Even if you think of a company as creative as Apple, it did get to that point where it was sort of iteration after iteration of the same phone, essentially, right? Or a watch, or more tricks on the same gadget. So I think in that sense, innovation has moved forward with some of these AI companies. uh, as with all technology, it sort of starts off with this will transform our lives, to these guys are the biggest villains on earth, which has happened in cycle after cycle. So I think they've made a fantastic business case for themselves, and the next few years will tell where execution really lies.
There's a famous chart in the business circles. I think it's called the Gartner chart of innovation. I could be wrong, but it basically goes through this hype cycle and then goes through the trough of disappointment, and then it slowly builds over a period of time. So all like good innovation often goes through hype cycles, and I think that's where we are for sure. I don't disagree, but I also think that this is not an innovation that's going to disappear. Like I think it's already making an insane amount of headway in our day to day. Business loser for 2024.
Manu, did you have a winner for business, by the
No,
way?
I'll save mine for the business surprise. So
Okay.
please go ahead, guys. Business loser of 2024. Do you
Richard,
want to
you
go
go.
first, Ruchir?
For me, it was Byju's. They finally filed for insolvency. I think it's not a surprise, but I mean, there was a time when we were like, oh, in education, startups do really well, and Byju's is like the king of all kings. But I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you raise if you don't execute well enough, you don't survive. And I think so many people, not just investors or shareholders, but parents have lost a lot of money, which is a really sad story. So that was the business loser for me for 2024.
Okay.
Mine is, it'll have to be the Adanis. I think it was kind of, just going by Ruchir's point about the hype cycle and then the trough. I think this has certainly been a bit of a plateau for them the last year and a half. And the thing is, with businesses that wide and that deep in terms of their financial strength, they may well survive this storm, but so much damage has happened to name and reputation. And for a company that has very, very clear global ambitions, I think this has been many steps back this last year. The fact that governments are sort of voting out doing any partnership with the Adanis, which has happened in parts of Africa, uh, I would say, given their own ambitions, this has been a bit of a washout year for them.
Richard, do you have a different take on the Adani group?
No, I didn't put them as a loser, but as a surprise for one reason, which is that their stock price keeps bouncing back. So I don't think they've lost as much, but like obviously the US case is far more serious than the Hindenburg short. But I also think like Adani, as we discussed on the last episode about being a national champion, I think for them to stay down and out is really hard. So I don't think of it as a loser, but I do think it was a surprise for me.
I have a slightly different perspective entirely on this. I mean, I think the big business sector, which was surprising this year for me, was all these. I want to call them health with fitness sleep tracker wearables, which I think, I mean, start of the year, I didn't know too many people who had something a little bit more than a Fitbit, but even that sort of had waned. And, even people weren't using their Apple Watches so closely. But now maybe it's just the segment of society that I live in, but I see a lot of people tracking everything, on their sleep and what they eat and the health. So I think that market, that business has, according to me, like been a huge surprise for me personally. Anything you would put down as a business surprise,
My
Mitali?
surprise is actually quite close to Ruchir's winner, which is Blinkit. Again, quick commerce, making these really quick deliveries. Of course, it's fantastic for them that they got acquired by Zomato. But I think the reason they're a winner for me is when even in terms of for anything, actually, for any industry, but especially for things like journalism and news and some of these startups, when you think harder about what is the value. I was in India a few months back, and I was honestly blown away by how every 15-year-old, and I'm not kidding you, 15-year-old on their phones has a Blinkit app. I feel like a salad, let me blink it. I'm making something, I'm missing one ingredient, I'll just blink it. The fact that they have aced this in Delhi NCR, and within 7 minutes you get what you asked for, and it could be something quite vague and not commonly available in grocery stores. I think they're a big surprise for me, and they're really impressed. It's really impressive the way they've made themselves um, a, a permanent feature on people's phones and lives, I should say. Ruchir, what about you?
I mean, that's it. I like it's amazing. That's why I said Zepto is the winner. I was amazed at how many people use it, and it arrives in 9 minutes. I mean, it's crazy that every time you think 10 minutes, they actually make it.
Lovely. Should we move on to the next category, guys, which is entertainment
Entertainment.
or media?
Yeah, I can drive that one. Manu, you want to go first? Who's your entertainment or media winner of 2024?
I didn't have much, in terms of specifics, but I do. I mean, just a general plug for our sector itself. I think the video podcasts have been taken much more seriously over this last calendar year. I mean, I've seen various, political leaders actually endorse and participate in podcasts with greater verve and enthusiasm than they ever had, right? So I think, think much sort of what Obama did to the sort of the Facebook, email, social media era. I think now people are recognizing the medium of podcast as a huge, powerful player in this space of media as such. But Mitali, back to
Very
you.
cool. Very cool. Ruchir, you want to go next with your entertainment or media winner?
I'm really not into watching celebrities on TV, but the one show I do watch now is the Great Indian Couple Show. I think they've really meaningfully Indianized, Saturday Night Live, or like this idea of like an interview with celebrities, but with these skits thrown in. It's extremely funny, and I think Kapil is a genius. I think what they've done with the whole show is really impressive. I think they are like by far the media winner. They're on Netflix. They've done very well. I think that's the big winner in my mind.
Nice. My entertainment winner is Diljit Dosanjh, which probably goes for like most of India as well. I mean, not just the fact that the guy is such a phenomenon in terms of his reach and his popularity, but to have really carefully, it's almost like Taylor Swift in a way, having built this personality, which is almost immediately connecting with people at a very human level. His effort to sort of travel through India, throw a light on other performers, to have the ability to quote poetry and Urdu, the ability to stop a concert and say, we're going to stop now and commemorate, the late Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh. Like he has this ability, I think, to play with public consciousness, and also was a very, very vocal supporter of the farmers through the farmer protest. Whatever our politics may be on that, I think he's one of those few, entertainers in India who has had the ability to take a political stand on things and actually come out with more love and support. So I think he's definitely one of my winners. Who's got a loser?
I think that we're all going to agree on this. I mean, sorry, Rashid, I'm going to steal yours, but I think the exit polls, across India, across
Yeah.
various Indian elections, the federal, national elections, and the state elections are all pretty, not just low on credibility, but just so unscientific and so way off that I don't know why big channels pay massive amounts of money for these. Like it could just be they could pay anyone, and they could just come up with some random numbers, so unscientific. Just compare them to we've compared them in past episodes with various other international exit polls, which are show much closer sort of predictions. So I'm sorry, Ruchir, I stole this one from you, but you want to
It's true.
add to this?
Nothing to add. It was just exit polls were the big losers. No one believes them anymore.
Do you want to go to surprise
Yeah.
media entertainment, Ruchir?
For me, it was the Ambani wedding that never ended, and every time you thought it was over on social media, a new wedding came up and a new location came up, and then the amount that came up. It was seriously a media event this year. So for me, the big surprise was the Ambani wedding.
But no, wait. Why were you surprised?
Because it didn't end. It just kept coming. It's like that is why I was like the first time it happened. I think it was in Jamnagar, and I was like, "Oh, this is very clever to do it in Jamnagar. So smart. They built an airport. You've even made a joke about how India can host Olympics because these guys can do this wedding." And then suddenly, like there was one in Geo World, and there was one in Italy. I mean, the thing just kept going.
Fair enough.
What
I don't
about
have
you,
one.
Manu?
I don't have one, Mitali.
I have one which is, and I mean, she could have been the winner as well, which is Payal Kapadia, the first Indian filmmaker to be at Cannes, to be in the Oscars. All we imagine is light. Really, this unassuming young woman with like a top knot and frequently in just like a, a sweater or a t-shirt. Fantastic stuff, yeah. To be able to create this kind of cinema where the whole world sits up and takes notice. Amazing. And again, it's not Bollywood and it's not mainstream. The film is in Malayalam. I haven't unfortunately been able to see it yet, but the fact that local language remains our most compelling way of telling stories, and I really believe that.
Very true. Very true.
Great. Let me take on sports winners of 2024. Manu.
Hard one. We spent a lot of time on our Have You Heards discussing sports, but I think I'm going to come back to Bumrah just because I was in Melbourne for day one of the Test match a few days ago, and it was a pretty testing day, and the literally the only sort of highlight was watching Bumrah sort of come tirelessly back, over after over, trying to sort of peg the Australian batters back. And there's like, I don't know what this is. Somebody should explain this to me at some point. But there's now like a chant that started going around Melbourne saying that we only believe now in Jassi Bai. And I mean, again, it wasn't a very good test match for us, but again, Bumrah just stood head and shoulders above every other Indian cricketer, batsman or bowler. And it's good to see a bowler do that for India after, I think, about 25 years of, since Kapil Dev, we've not had anybody who could bowl at that level. Sorry, so that's my sports winner. Mitali, then Ruchir.
Mine is not a person, but a sport, and a country, which is I think India in chess. It's been phenomenal to watch these young men and women just clean the system out, with their playing. Very very inspiring to see that. That you have a world class league, and I think that's what legacies look like, right? It's not one player who sort of shoots into the sky and then you're done. It's that there are so many of them out there. So yeah, India and chess for me. Richard, for you?
For me, it's two. One is obvious, one is a little less obvious. The obvious one was like until the last 5 overs of the T20 World Cup, I thought we were going to, like, it wasn't clear that we will win. And then winning it from that point was incredible. I think that was a big moment of 2024 in cricket. And then the less obvious one was the Paralympians outperformed for India like never before. With they like ranked 18th, they had the best. They had 7 golds, 29 medals. I think there was a big show this year, and I think well done to the Paralympians. I'm glad that we're rising at least in one of the Olympic rankings. So that was a big winner. And just because we're on it, I'm going to go to the loser, which was India at Summer Olympics, which for me, I felt like, yes, they were great performance with Manu Bhaker or Neeraj repeatedly silver or India's hockey team. Great. But I mean, 6 medals for us, no gold. I feel like for us to continue to shine as a country, it has to reflect in sports. And for me, Olympics, it was a bad year for us. That was the big loser for 2024. Sports loser, Manu or Mitali?
No losers in sports, according to me.
I have one.
Everybody.
I have one who's not currently an active, sort of playing sports person, which is Sunil Gavaskar. Like, please stop, like, stop the commentating. I mean, the politically off-color comments, optical illusion, like this. We use this term, like, an Uncle G, like, really stop. Please just stop commentating. Give other cricketers a chance, and just retire from the commentating as well gracefully. So that's my loser from sports, and I have no sports surprise. So if either of you have a sports surprise, then you should go.
Rohan Bopanna winning the Australian Open this year. It was 2024. He won it a doubles title at 44. I think that was a big surprise. I don't think any of us saw that coming, that Rohan Bopanna is still playing and he won, which was very impressive. Yeah. Should we summarize like maybe a few more categories? International Person of the Year for 2024. How do you define international person? Somebody who's of Indian origin but
And
made
no,
us proud abroad.
I guess for me it's just someone who I think for the world over is a person of relevance, maybe, or someone who really made you sit up and think. That was where I was coming from. So I can go quickly with who mine is, and then you all can think about yours or share yours. So mine is Giselle Pellicot, who I'm sure people may have read about. This woman in France who over a decade, I think, was systematically raped by her husband. She was also drugged by him and filmed being raped by other men. When this went to trial, Giselle made the really, really courageous decision to be completely open about the proceedings, open about herself, not sort of concealing her identity. And she went on to make that really famous line, which I think will go down in history, which was "Shame must change sides." The shame is not on the woman or anyone, honestly, who has been a victim of abuse. The shame is on the abuser. So I think for me, she's just an incredible woman. Incredible for young girls to see that and to know that you should speak up and you should not feel any shame, attached to the event. That's my person of the year.
Very, very. Couldn't agree anymore, Mitali. I think just a very, I think, courageous story. I'm going to sort of not talk about any person of the year, but like the one, judgment of the year, which is sort of, I think left a little flickering hope in the judiciary in an otherwise very gloomy sort of tenure and era, was the one on electoral bonds. So almost 6 or 7 years after the electoral bonds were introduced, Supreme Court finally in February 2024 struck down the basis, the legal basis for electoral bonds, essentially, which meant that for 6 years, various political parties could receive electoral bonds, could receive funds in the form of electoral bonds. But then at least, I think finally we have a judgment which sort of lays down that this is, in a way, legitimizing corruption. So I think that was a flicker of hope in an otherwise, like I said, not a great or not a checkered year for Indian judiciary. So I wanted to sort of leave that thought. Ruchir,
I,
you?
just because we are on that topic, I mean, I will come back to the international person. I think the one thing I do want to see more of that happened this year is like BJP finally being challenged as the party in power. I felt like this was the year where they didn't have the right to be arrogant anymore. I think it's like the mood of the nation is like, hey, we still want you because there's no alternative, but uh, like let's follow the rules and be good citizenry. So I think that's what I want to see more of this year. From this year, I want to see more of like BJP being challenged, basically. Manu, Mitali, anything you want to see more of this year?
I can go quickly and I can mix the two. So, one thing I want to see more of or hear more about is books. I hope, in a world of video podcasts and all these really exciting things, people take the time to read and take the time to share what they've read and that has moved them. I think it's such a brilliant way to connect. And I think the thing I want to see less of is reels. I don't think we will. I don't think that's the end of it. But personally, I think it's eaten into our sense of what time looks like, and like watching a good film or reading a good book or a good documentary. Maybe this is the old person in me that is pining for that, but I hope we sort of go back to doing that and doing less of these, entertain me for 5 seconds and then 5 seconds and then 5 seconds. Manu, what about you?
I'm going to say we should all look forward to more sleep. As you all know,
Mm.
I wear a health tracker myself, and I think it's made me realize the importance of good sleep. Nothing like good sleep. Yes, true, Mitali. A book is very important, but a book before a good night's rest only
Yes.
helps your sleep. So, see, it's a means to an end. So the end is a good night's rest. So make sure you get 8 hours of sleep, everyone, and I think that's very important. And of course, when you wake up, make sure you watch the India Dialogue podcast fresh in the morning.
So just before we close the awards for this year, I think we should end with Indian of the Year. I will just go to the international person of the year for me. Like then was Elon Musk because not only like obvious, I mean for obvious things, especially around the chopsticks in space. I think that is insane. We'll get catching a spaceship back on Earth, but also the fact that politically he didn't align with the government in power and he decided to publicly back the a party he has never backed before and actually won the election. I mean, yeah, that guy when he sets his mind to something, he actually goes and achieves it. So I think this was his year in my mind. But Indian of the Year, who wants to have a crack at that?
Hmm.
I can, and it may be the same for the two of you. I don't know, but I think for me, the Indian of the Year is our former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. so much has been said, and so much has been documented and written and all of that. And I know this sentence has kind of got overused on social media about when he said in a press conference that history will be kinder to him than the press of the moment was. uh, it takes something. I think it takes something to be a politician for a large chunk of your professional career, and to end it on a note where everyone equivocally across the board has such warm things to say about you. And that he really kind of built his career graph along a particular interest, which is economics, which is really building something of value, which is leaving something as a legacy to a country, which I think, and I know we've talked about this, Richard, about how people tend to, confabulate politics with, great social work. But I think part of it is that's what you're in the job for. You are there to do greater good. And I think he really did that for, whatever other criticisms we may have of him. So he's my Indian of the year.
I agree, Mitali, but it's really sad that we have to recognize him the year that he passed away, as opposed to the many other years that he was there. And he was very much one of the things that I want to add is that very powerful image. Again, much after Congress got voted out of power, when he was brought in a wheelchair to vote. In the Rajya Sabha, when he was still able to. But I think really a man, I think, who had his head in the right place and his heart sort of always sort of thinking about the larger interests. Often, people with less political oratory, or people who are more silent or who speak less, are often mistaken in our sort of analysis of who are capable, competent, and politically astute. And I think Dr. Singh sort of showed us that you can be a quiet nerd of a politician, right? You put it very articulately as an economist, but essentially he just came across as a person who didn't speak very much and was not socially introverted. And whereas politics demands you to be speaking and gesticulating and making these big amazing catchy one liners, which, other than that one that you said about history being kinder, I don't think Dr. Singh had any other one liners or zingers throughout his 10 years as prime minister. So I think for making us recognize and realize that, maybe I think it's fair that we sort of think of him as one of those great Indians.
Probably get disagreements from you, which is Jai Shankar. I think just following up from the initial piece, that I think we're doing well in the Indian diplomatic stage. I think Jai Shankar has been the only Indian politician who can truly be proud of his track record. I think, at least in the current environment. So that was for me the Indian of the year. Predictions. Political winner of 2025. And I'll start this one. This is not like a response people would expect from me, and I referred to it a little bit earlier, which is Rahul Gandhi. I think we've finally transitioned from making fun of Rahul Gandhi to taking him seriously. I think we've gone from at least the greater characterization around jokes around him, the whole Papu situation, to taking the walk, I think the Nyaya Yatra seriously, and then with the elections, the fact that UPA did better. I think he won both of the seats he contested in this year, Rai Bareli and Wayanad. So I feel like Rahul Gandhi is now someone who people believe can lead a credible opposition. So I feel like he will have a good 2025. That is my prediction for next year. Political winners from your perspective?
So, Richard, there's only Delhi and Bihar that's going to elections in 2025.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Rahul Gandhi is going to make a mark there. But I mean, your point is taken about, I think, the general sort of trajectory of Rahul Gandhi and the Congress has improved. if you take the state, if you take the national elections as a barometer. But again, in the state elections, if you see Maharashtra, Haryana, and I think that goes to Mitali's point, political winner of 2025, I actually don't know. I hope it's not the one nation, one election constitution amendment. I hope that is the political loser of 2025, because I think that is something that, for many reasons, right? I mean, look, ultimately, whatever the elections is, you still have to sort of play the politicking game and, get more votes than the other person. But the fact that, something which is so fundamental to a state or a state legislative assembly, which is the when they will go to elections and when their assembly will fall, because that really depends on the people, right? I mean, Maharashtra sent a very splintered government last time around, yet you had almost two or three formations of governments, and that's the will of the people. Ultimately, everybody accepted it. But to sort of change that entirely over, I think is a huge setback. And in 2025, that will sow the seeds for other similar sort of moves, which will sort of reduce the mandate of the states. So I hope that is the political loser of 2025. I don't know who will be a political winner of 2025, so I'll let Mitali take that one.
I don't have a political winner either. I hope, as one always does, it is the voters, and I hope they make their choices wisely and choices that sort of impact their lives for the better. But I don't have a winner there. I think my political loser is actually an international face. And it's not that I want him to lose, but I certainly want to see things resolve themselves, which is Benjamin Netanyahu. I think if you were to speak to a lot of people in Israel at this point, it's it's a really difficult situation. It's a difficult situation for those who have family that were hostages or that they still don't know about. And it's a difficult situation for people who are trying to speak out against what they see as violence. I think it kind of speaks to the importance of leadership for a country in times of distress. There's been enough, not enough actually, there's been some international pushback, but I believe not enough. So it's not that I want him to lose, but I certainly want to see the situation resolved for, I think, for the sake of humanity, really. It's quite unreal what we are seeing unfolding in that region. So yeah.
I have an Indian political loser, non-Indian political loser. The Indian one, I think, I worry about our young voters. So I think, Mitali, in your spirit, I think unemployment is something I'm nervous about, and like that's the piece I think will be continue to be the casualty that it is right now. The internationally, I think it'll be Zelensky will be the political loser of 25 for one reason that Trump is friendly with Putin, and I expect them to offer the US to offer a golden bridge to retreat to Russia, part of which will be annexation of Crimea. So I think the Ukraine war should end, but it will end with a big chunk of it belonging to Russia. That is the political prediction. Any business predictions for winners and losers of 2025?
I
I'm all
don't
yours.
have a winner, but I have one who is a loser, who is your winner, Ruchir, which is Elon Musk. I think, I mean, there's limitless arrogance, of course, but at some point, sometimes the chickens do come home to roost. And in a conversation with another fairly well-known podcaster who's actually Republican but is anti-Trump, so quite an interesting mix. He kind of pointed to this in a way. Elon Musk is basically the son that Trump didn't have and now has. And it's also a really, really precarious situation of two very large and also very volatile egos involved. And I think that is going to start really getting into the mix in 2025. It's not easy for Elon Musk to be told no. and it's not easy for Trump to be told what to do. And I think that might be a pretty volatile combination. You can already see some of the sort of the outcomes of his hubris in what has happened with X. And I don't mean that just in terms of the state of the platform, but the financial condition of it as well. I don't know what will happen with other things like SpaceX and Tesla, etc. But my prediction is that Musk is going to have a slightly trickier time in 25. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking and not a prediction.
No, at least the egos clashing is probably a good theory.
Yeah.
For me, on the Indian and business winner is the Indian IPO market. I think given the buoyancy of the markets right now, we're expecting a lot of IPOs. I know about a few like firsthand. A lot of investors are going to get liquid. I don't think the retail investors will win as a result, but a lot of investors are going to make their money because of where the markets are. And then on the flip side, business losers, on the AI topic, I think our IT service companies are in trouble. And we're at the early stage of where they are. If you just look at the big four with Wipro, TCS, HCL, and Infosys, they are all doing like low single digit growth. Wipro is actually in a year to date decline. And given AI, given the H1B controversy in the US and just lack of culture, like innovative culture in these firms, I think they're going to have a difficult 2025. That's my expectation. So I would be willing to take a shot on that actually, on the IT service companies in India.
Not
Entertainment, sorry.
not even if they work 14 to 18 hours a day, as
I
one of their
think
founders.
this is sad. Yeah, I think that's not going to save Infosys. I think they have to come up with something else. Entertainment or media winners and losers for 2025.
Go for it, Ruchir. All yours.
None for me.
I just want TV debates to lose. I don't want them anymore. Can we please make TV news watchable again? I guess we're in business now because of it, but I really want them to be on their way out. Um, any other TV, any other media or entertainment winners or losing predictions? Then the last one is sports. Any predictions for sports winners of 2025, losers of 2025?
Well, hard to tell. I mean, because such a wide category, you really like got us thinking, Ruchir. I think, see, we've seen like a bunch of tennis greats, sign off in the last couple of years. So really, the only one that's left is Djokovic, right? So I mean, not as a winner or a loser, but I mean, if he wins, it'll be amazing because he would have then pushed the bar so much higher. He's already won the most number of Grand Slams for a male singles player. But if he does another one, and if he retires too, it'll be truly the end of that era of those three or four all-time greats. So probably Djokovic is the one to watch. I think a lot of people should look at next year as his sort of final farewell year because I think he's pretty close to 39 or 38 now. So that's my prediction. Mitali and Richie?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a winner, but I do have someone that I hope kind of does more for herself, and that's Naomi Osaka again from tennis, who's kind of, she's come back from so many really hard breaks. I mean, she kind of really spoke so honestly about her mental health challenges, which I think was very courageous of her. She then came back from a break after having a child. It's hard enough for women, but to do that when sports is your mainstay is even harder, I think. And then she's had a long break, I think, and she's just come back and won in a championship in New Zealand from memory. So I hope to see more sort of women come back to sport after really large career breaks and after really pivotal moments like having a child. Um, and I think Naomi Osaka embodies a lot of that. So that's my pick.
I think Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. It's sad because we're talking on the day India lost the Australia Test. So I feel like it's coming out as a loser prediction. But I think we're finally going to have a change of guard next year for sure, especially after the Champions Trophy. So There'll be two big stalwarts, I think, bowing out most likely in 25, which is predictable. That's all we have for today. Manu, Mitali, any parting thoughts for the end of the year?
Mitali?
Get some sleep. Get some sleep, as Manu says. Get some hydration. Keep listening to us. Tell us what you think. We can't function in a bubble. We want to hear more from you. A large part of this is not the three of us talking to each other, but what is value for people who listen in. So, wishing you a happy and healthy new year, and more communication with us.
I think when we started this almost this a year ago, and now after having done I think 36 or so episodes, we've sort of I think come to a point where we feel we are speaking. Something that's important to us or sharing thoughts that means something to us, but we really don't know, and hopefully people who are listening and watching this do feel that it's important enough. Please do write back to us. One, that's a great new year resolution. If you're looking for one, like, support your podcast by writing back. Secondly, I think for many of us this year, it's sort of been a very interesting year. Like I said, at least at the age group that I'm in, there's a greater sort of sense of awareness about your own health, well-being, physical, and a lot to do with, like, how you deal with strain and sleep and all of that. So I hope everybody is sort of taking care of that as well. And finally, the third thing that I learned this year, is to read more and to read different things and to keep reading. It's almost like what most people will tell you about investing, right? Like, just keep investing a little bit over the years, and you will reap rich dividends down the line. It's like that. You keep reading little bits, even if you can only make it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day. Just keep reading a lot more, and as you will realize that reading will lead to a better mental state, and as Aristotle calls it, lead to uh, a state of reflective thinking. So I wish reflective thinking for people in 2025. Ruchir?
And lots of growth, I hope. Thank you for being part of this journey and being with us and listening. India Dialogue Podcast at gmail.com, the email that you want to send an email to give us feedback. We love hearing from you. It's very encouraging, positive or negative. You can also leave a review on Spotify and Apple if you listen there, especially if you like the show. Leaving a 5-star rating helps other people discover the podcast. You can also find us on Twitter, X. We are at TID_podcast. On YouTube, we are at India Dialogue Podcast channel. Manu is at ManuRaj1983. Mitali is at Mitali Live. I am Ruchir_P. Thank you again so much for making it this far. Have a wonderful end of 2024, and we look forward to seeing you at the beginning of 25. Bye.